I'm regurgitating it from a guy named Groeschel. He's owns one of the biggest churches in the United States. He's my old pastor. It's good leadership material. I'm not always going to use this stuff, but for this particular thing, I am going to. Last week, we talked about unpredictable. We talked about 3 types of leaders, and then we're going to do 3 types this week as well, okay? The first type that we talked about last week or the week before last, was unpredictable leaders. Obviously, you don't want to be an unpredictable leader. They produce hesitant followers. So, in other words, if I'm always like over here, I'm always like over here, you never know what I'm doing. And chances are you're going to be hesitant about following me because you're like, this guy's crazy. What is he going to do next? All right? And that's not in the good sense of the word. You want to be a type of leader that does things consistently. All right. Here's a quote: successful people do consistently what normal people do occasionally. All right. A hesitant or an unpredictable leader, they really don't have any vision. They're just kind of like whatever pops up. I might be doing one thing this week and then I'm doing another thing the next week. That's number one. The second is a domineering leader. You don't want to be a domineering leader. They produce compliant followers. For instance, if you've had a boss, then you've had a boss that, yeah, you do what he says, but it's only because he's your boss. He comes down on you hard all the time. You wouldn't follow that guy. They produce compliant followers. In order, as you become a leader, if you've ever got a group that you're in charge of, you want to keep from being a domineering leader by asking questions. What can I do better? Ask that to your group. Ask that to your people. Include them. You're not their lord.
Yeah.
You're not their overlord. Keep them involved. Ask them questions. Okay. The third type is a secretive leader. Okay. A secretive leader is going to produce guarded followers, and that just is common sense. I mean, I know that you're always keeping secrets. I'm probably going to stay guarded whenever I'm around you. You can create vision buy-in by over-communicating. So if you're in charge of something, just like your band, for instance, you want to over-communicate. It's better to over-communicate than to under-communicate. If you're over-communicating, people might get sick of hearing it, but at least they know what direction you're heading in, right?
That's the first thing that came to mind was worship.
Yeah, and that's why this kind of stuff will help you in that. I mean, you're in charge. God's given you that place to be in charge of, and you need to be a good steward of it.
Yeah.
Transparency is always good, no matter what position you're in. If people know that you are see-through, then they'll trust you and they'll follow you. So that was last time. This time we're going to talk about 3 more. The first one's still a little bit negative, but the last 2 are kind of like where you want to be at. All right. Passive leader. You don't want to be a passive leader. A passive leader produces disengaged followers. So if I'm a leader and I'm in charge of, coffee, I don't know. Think of something that somebody could be in charge of. If I'm in charge of seating, if I'm head of all the ushers, and I've got 2 ushers that are at each other's throats, they don't like each other, which is going to happen. And I see it, but I don't do anything about it. Well, magically what happens is the 2 being at each other's throat no longer becomes the problem. If I'm a passive leader and I don't do anything about it, I actually become the problem. So if you, in your band, for instance, if you're in charge there and say like Alyssa and James are constantly fighting and they don't like each other and you don't help them to resolve that, well, it's not actually their fault anymore because you're the leader. God put you there. If you don't fix it, it's actually your problem. It's your fault, not theirs. Okay, because you're in charge. It's just like parenting. If you're the leader and you're supposed to be there, you're the one who needs to make the changes. Okay, people are more likely to respect you if you do something rather than if you do nothing. You don't have to be perfect to be a leader. You don't have to be perfect to be in charge. But what you do have to be is available. So the other thing is an average plan. Like if you've got stuff that needs to be fixed, don't sit back and do nothing. Think of some kind of plan. An average plan is better than no plan at all. All right? Ready? Now we can get positive. The fifth type of leader is a healthy leader, which is ideally what we want to be. A healthy leader produces forward movement. So if you're in charge of something and you're being a healthy leader, there's going to be natural byproducts of forward movement. A healthy leader is opposite of everything that we just mentioned. So a healthy leader isn't going to be unpredictable. He's going to have vision. He's going to have the direction, and he's going to constantly go in that direction. Right? He's going to be led by God to go in that direction. If you're a healthy leader, you're not going to be a domineering leader. You're going to ask questions. You're going to make a team atmosphere. You're going to have a me mentality, or not, you're going to have a we mentality and not a me mentality. All right. You're not going to be if you're a healthy leader, you're not going to be a secretive leader. You're going to be transparent. Nobody's going to think, okay, this guy, he does everything on a need to know basis. Mm-hmm. Everything's not necessarily a need to know basis, because if you want people to follow you, and especially if you want to evolve into the next type of leader we're going to talk about, you need to be transparent. All right, and if you're a passive leader, okay, if you're a healthy leader, you're not going to be a passive leader. Okay, you're going to be an active leader. You're going to get involved. If you see something needs fixed, you're going to fix it. All right, if you basically, a good way to be an active leader is if you see something that needs to be fulfilled, if you see a need, then fill that need. If you have that mentality in life, like if I see a need, I feel it, you're gonna go far in general. Because if you're just constantly looking at like what needs to be fixed, like if I'm even my personality in church, like when I'm sitting in there, like sometimes because my personality is that way, and because I've trained myself to be looking for needs that need to be fulfilled, it'll get in my head if something's out of place. Like if the music, or if there's speakers cracking up there, I'm like, we need to go fix that right now. You want to be that type of person. You don't want to let that control your life, obviously. But you want to be active. You don't ever want to be passive. All right. So, healthy leader is good. Right. An empowering leader is top. That's top notch, and it's where you want to strive to be. And by the way, you might say that, well, I'm not in charge of my job, so I don't need to listen to leadership information. No matter if you're in charge or not, you're always going to want to be a good leader. Being a leader, it really isn't about being in charge. Being a leader is about what Jesus says to do, which is put others before yourself. Right? Mm-hmm. So you want to be an empowering leader. An empowering leader produces other great leaders. All right. Our goal is not to produce great followers if we're leaders. Our goal is to produce great leaders. Like I just said, an empowering leader is all about people. They give responsibility away. In other words, they empower people to do more. All right. Instead of having people that are going to do, instead of having people that are going to, that you're constant. How do I say that? Okay, you need to learn to delegate. In other words, like great leaders that are empowering leaders, they learn to delegate. They learn to get others to do what they can't do, or they hire to their weakness, or just like right now with Dauntless Youth. If we're gonna, only thing I might ever say to Joseph is my opinion on something, but he's empowered. He can say yes. He runs the show there. All right. Whenever we get a group of young people that are going to be in charge of sitting people down, I'll find a person that I can trust to say, yes, this is your baby. You're in charge of sitting people here and getting the seats filled and not leaving open seats open. Or, with Mr. Burnham, I don't tell him what to do. He's in charge of that up there. I expect that he's going to learn how to do the slides and do them well. Whenever we get a sound person, that's going to be their baby. I suspect that your dad doesn't go around telling Tom, he doesn't ride him all the time and saying, you need to do sound just like this. He says, all right, Tom, this is your baby. I naturally expect you to do the best that you can do. So, here's another one. It's kind of where I'm at right now. Like this says you don't find a great staff, you build a great staff. So one of these days, especially if you go into ministry, or if you're the boss at your job, or if you're doing a startup business or whatever, chances are you're not going to just find and happen onto a great staff, because if there's a great staff somewhere, they're probably already employed somewhere else. There's somebody else's great staff. So you have to build one. That's what Joseph's doing right now. He's building a great team of worship leaders. That's what we're doing right now, which is the part of the purpose of this Dauntless Leaders, is to build a great staff, a great youth ministry staff. So you don't find one, you build one. Just a question to ask yourself, if you want to write this down, is how deep, okay, like for you, for instance, how deep in your band, how deep in your organization have you empowered people to say yes?
Say yes.
To say yes. How much have you delegated? In other words, like, are you delegating? Don't
Yes,
answer. Don't answer it. But no. Yes to. Basically, how much have you empowered the people in your bands? Don't answer me. This is just for you to think to yourself. Or like, how much delegation have you done? How much empowering have you done? Do people, whenever they look at you as the leader, do they look at you as one of those first four that we don't want to be? Or do they look at you as the fifth one? Or do they look at you as the sixth one, which is an empowering leader? Which one are you? That's just a question for you to ask yourself. So, all right, just to recap, because I promised this thing would only last 30 minutes. There's 6 types of leaders. You got unpredictable leaders, domineering leader, secretive leader, passive leaders. You've got healthy leaders, and then you've got the one that you want to be, which is an empowering leader. Something to keep in mind, lead yourself first. If you want to be a leader, lead yourself first. Then lead others. And the way you lead others is through delegation and empowering. After that, your goal, like right now I'm trying to lead others, but I've got a game plan about that, which is to lead teams of leaders leading leaders. So you want to almost like a pyramid scheme, like we're selling Amway or something. I want teams of leaders underneath me. That's ideal, depending on how large you grow. All right. So, and just something to remember in closing is, it's not what I do, not do what I do what I can't do. In other words, you're getting people to your weakness, like you're attracting people that do what you can't do, and then you're saying, now go. I can't run sound. I can't be a worship leader. That's not me. I couldn't do it. I can't sing. I can't play an instrument. So I've got Joseph, and Joseph's awesome, and Joseph has full reign of what he does. So, all right, that's it. And thank you very much for coming.